Week 7 of the NFL season is in the history books, and it was a pretty crazy one for a lot of reasons, between choked leads, teams playing a lot closer against bad teams than they should, and so much more. I only went 9-6 on the week from said chaos, and we're looking to bounce back as we look towards week 8 here. Today I'm giving you a breakdown preview and my predictions for every single game on the schedule, and I do this every week of the NFL season, so make sure to subscribe if this is something you're into. Let's just dive straight into the action, starting with Thursday night when the Vikings play the Chargers. This game's deceivingly difficult to have a stance on, at least in my opinion. Neither team has impressed all that much. The Vikings are definitely worse than the Chargers on paper, but LA the last handful of weeks have not looked very good. I believe they've lost 3 of their last 4, and their only victory in that time period was against the lowly Dolphins, which doesn't exactly make you feel the best about this team. Their run game is currently in shambles with Hampton out. They're depending on Herbert to do literally everything, but it's tough when the O-line is banged up as it is. And against an aggressive Brian Flores-led defense, that could certainly be a problem. However, it's not exactly like the Vikings are in the best of places either. They've looked pretty human, they've kept a lot of games close, but they continue to find ways to lose said games outside of a recent win against Cleveland. Carson Wentz, he's not bad, but I wouldn't say he's great either. Unreliable is the word I'd use, where he's able to make some big plays, he's passing for a lot of yards, but he's also making those costly turnovers that just lose his team the game straight up, and we could see a similar thing against the Chargers here as well. Chargers are very beatable, but they really need to win this game to keep pace in the AFC West. They've completely destroyed their lead, and they're playing from behind now. They just can't afford to lose this one, so I think I am reluctantly going to pick the Chargers at home to win this game. I think it's going to be close, but in crunch time, I believe that Carson Wentz will cost his team the game. And if I'm being for real with you, that Vikings defense, they're very weird. Either they look horrible against the run, like the Atlanta game, for example, or garbage against the pass, like in the most recent Philly game, or when they played the Steelers as well. And if I'm being for real with you, if they're having a hard time stopping the Eagles' pass game, which had been horrible up until that point, I don't know how I feel about them going up against the Chargers, who have relied heavily on the pass game and have found a lot of success with it. This just seems like a tough matchup for the Vikings, but I think they're going to lose a close one in the end. Anyway, moving on to the Sunday 1 p.m. slot. First is the Giants versus the Eagles. Had the Giants actually taken care of business against Denver, instead of choking in historic fashion, you might be feeling pretty good about them. But alas, they found very Giants ways to lose that game, and that could be season killing, season destroying. That's what makes players want to quit on the team, questioning how in the hell they could lose a game like that. Losers find ways to lose, and that's unfortunately what the Giants are. And now they're playing an Eagles team who finally had their get-right game. Finally looked good in the pass game. They're building some momentum. And now they're playing a Giants secondary which got banged up severely in the last game. Both Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland went down. So it's kind of like what the Giants were dealing with when they played Philly on Thursday night. And now this time, Jalen Carter will be there to stuff the middle. It'll probably make it a lot harder for the Giants to establish the run like they did the previous time on Thursday night. And Jackson Dart as well got banged up, his ankle's bothering him, and if he's not as mobile, he's really going to be screwed. Philly should be winning this game. The Giants have been bad on the road, and there's just so many indicators that would tell you Philly are in the driver's seat here. It's hard to imagine the Giants can bounce back after such a historic collapse, so I am going with Philly here. Speaking of New York franchises making their fans miserable, also in the 1 p.m. slate, the Jets are taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. And if we're being real, there's no reason to pick the Jets to straight up win a game until they actually show us they're capable of winning games. Maybe you want to throw something down on some type of other bet, like a spread here and there, or maybe a certain player prop, but nobody should be picking the Jets to win straight up. That feels like a death sentence. They haven't won a game. They've looked really sloppy in most of their matches with not much offense to be seen, and the Bengals actually keep on improving with Joe Flacco. In just his second start, and only knowing his team for like maybe 14 days at most, he went out there and led a big win over the division rival Pittsburgh Steelers, and that Bengals offense was ballin'. Joe Flacco was ballin'. He was throwing bombs to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins all game long. He was on the money. He's not taking a lot of bad sacks like people thought he would. Even the run game is starting to look good. There's reason to believe that Bengals offense continues to improve, while the Jets offense has been nothing but trash this year. So give me the Bengals. Not by much, but I think they are going to find a way to win this game. Next up on the schedule, the Miami Dolphins, the poverty franchise themselves, are taking on the Atlanta Falcons. The Dolphins, I learned my lesson the hard way. I should probably never pick them again after last week when Cleveland beat the absolute snot out of them. They lost that game in every facet. They couldn't get stops. Their special teams was bad. They were turning the ball over. Two on the offense looks completely lost, especially with Tyreek gone. It's just a complete and utter dumpster fire there, and you can tell everybody is miserable behind the scenes. They may not win another game this season. At this point, the damage has been done. They feel completely and utterly hopeless, and the Falcons should be able to beat them without too much of an issue. Next up, the New England Patriots are hosting the Cleveland Browns, and straight up, I'm just picking the Pats. Not much to think about here. This game could be rather low scoring because of that Cleveland defense and how legit it is, but it's difficult to imagine Cleveland winning 2 games in a row. And ultimately what this comes down to for me is they're not playing a crappy team like the Dolphins again this week. The Pats are disciplined, and they've gotten a lot of the bad mistakes out of their system already this season. They're not going to play a Dolphins team who gives them endlessly good field position off of 2 arm punts and horrible special teams and all that nonsense. The Pats are disciplined, they're consistent, and they've looked pretty damn good. They're one of the best teams in all of the AFC. Their defense has been pretty capable. It's been improving. Drake May looked great. They've established a run game. The Browns just won't have enough to keep up in the end. They'll keep it close for a while, but I don't trust Dylan Gabriel to get the job done if there even are any opportunities offered to him. Quinshon Judkins is a beast. He may have a good game, but that will not be enough to save them. Give me the Patriots. And then you've got the Buffalo Bills off of a bye week going to Carolina to take on the Panthers. The Bills, you gotta feel pretty concerned about them right now. They've lost a couple of games in a row, and it seems like a very common trend is occurring with this team, where if the offense doesn't produce at a super high level, they straight up lose because they can't depend on their defense to get the key stops. It's just not a good unit. They're injury riddled and they feel like one of the worst in the entire league. And they're playing a Panthers team which can sneakily put up some points at time. And right now they're sitting above 500. They're right there with the Bills in terms of record, crazy as it seems. So this is a very losable game for Buffalo. However, I do think they're going to bounce back and win this week for a couple of reasons. One, they had a bye week to prepare for this game. 2, they are just a more consistent football team. But also, it seems from what I'm hearing that Bryce Young, after sustaining an injury against the Jets, will not be playing in this game. And if it's Andy Dalton that goes out there, I feel even better about Buffalo's chances to win this matchup. It's scary hours for Buffalo. If they lose this game or if it's even close, it will mean trouble, but I expect them to get the win here. And then you've got the Chicago Bears versus the Baltimore Ravens. And I'll be for real with you, looking at this game on the calendar last week, I figured that Lamar would be back after an extra week of rest and maybe the rest of the team could get healthy, and this is where they could turn their season around against a winnable Bears team. They could do it. They could start the win streak right here with Lamar just firing on all cylinders, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen now. There's still a possibility he plays this week, but on Monday he didn't practice, despite having that bye week. He's still clearly not 100% even if he does play this game. Can you expect him to carry if he doesn't have his mobility because of that hamstring? Seems highly unlikely if you ask me. If he's banged up on a terrible Ravens team, what chance do they have against the Bears? I think whether or not he plays does not matter, because when you think about how this season has gone, the Ravens have just been a bad team in general. Their defense looks bad, they're choking leads when they do have opportunities, they just stink. And the Bears, on the other hand, they've actually looked pretty competent. Not amazing or anything, but they ripped off a couple of impressive wins in a row. Caleb and the offense are at least able to put up points. I think the defense goes under the radar with their ability to force turnovers, and whether it's a hobbled Lamar or some other trash quarterback, I think they're going to struggle against the Bears. The Ravens feel demoralized and like the season is over, so I'm taking the Bears no matter what. And in the final 1 p.m. slot of the week, the 49ers are taking on the Houston Texans. I'll be honest, this Niners team continues to surprise me. I'm very impressed. I didn't think they'd beat Atlanta. I thought the Falcons were definitely the better team heading into this match because the Niners are hurt. They just lost Fred Warner. Bijan should be able to run all over them, but that just wasn't the case. The Niners had a good game plan. They kept that Falcons offense in check, and Mac Jones and Christian McCaffrey continued to dominate. This Niners team is so resilient. Despite being so short-handed, they keep finding ways to be productive and successful. Mac Jones has looked better than I ever could have thought. Christian McCaffrey has just been the focal point of the offense, and he's been thriving in that role. He looks healthy again. And then you have all these other guys who are going out there, despite not being 100%, and trying their best for the team. The Niners just keep finding ways to win. They're a very strong team. They're well coached, and you got to give them credit. You know who I can't say the same for? The Houston Texans. Sadly, this team is straight up not good. The Texans are bad this season. There were plenty of opportunities for them to beat the Seahawks, or at least maybe send that game to overtime or something, but they got stopped at the goal line multiple times, and they just have no feel for the game. Their offensive line is one of the worst I've ever seen. They can't pass the ball. They can't run the ball either, especially without Joe Mixon. There's just no positives outside of the D-line. You can't expect this team to be any team that has real competence behind them. The Texans are probably only going to beat the bad teams this season, and obviously the Niners are nowhere near that category, so give me the way more consistent team in the Niners. The Texans really need to win this game, but I just don't expect them to. Transitioning to the late afternoon games, first is the Buccaneers versus the Saints. Tampa's looking incredibly thin right now when it comes to weapons that Baker Mayfield can dish the ball out to. Mike Evans, who literally just came back after an injury, went down again, this time with a broken clavicle. He may be done the rest of the season. You have Egbuka, who's been a star in the making, but is dealing with injuries and may not be 100% in this game. Chris Godwin may not be ready for Week 8. And who knows what happens with Bucky Irving and when he's ready to come back. The Bucs have no one for Baker to throw this ball to. And we saw the struggles in the Detroit game, and it can be a real problem until this team is fully recovered moving forward. Now, luckily for them, it's looking like they catch a break this week as they're playing the Saints, who are just straight up not a good team. They've been in a lot of games this season. They're a lot more scrappy than what their record would suggest, but they still are a one-win team. They're still not good. They find ways to lose, and I expect that to remain the same against the Buccaneers. This is such an important game for Tampa to hold a big lead in their division, and they're not going to waste it. And then you have the Denver Broncos hosting the Dallas Cowboys. And I swear I'm not just saying this because I'm a salty Giants fan, but this Broncos team just has to lose a game eventually. I know they're at home and they've been really good here the last year or so, but they can't keep on catching these breaks, man. I give them a lot of credit for being clutch in late game scenarios, but it feels like they should have lost 3 games in a row at this point. That Philly game, it's crazy the Eagles choked that. It's crazy the Giants choked the way they did in the fourth quarter. And they had a really close game against the freaking Jets, who are absolutely garbage, literally the worst team in the league. This Denver team is so overdue for a loss. It's not even funny. They're so inconsistent. Their offense is hit or miss. And now they're playing the Dallas Cowboys, an high-powered offense who have put up 30-plus in so many different games this season. That Denver defense is legit, and that Dallas O-line isn't great, but let me tell you, if the Giants are able to put 30 on Denver, I don't see any reason why Dallas can't do the same. That's literally the best offense in the NFL. They should find success, especially with CeeDee Lamb back. Pat Surtain's going to have to cover him, and that should leave a lot of room for both Ferguson and George Pickens to have a good game. I know they're on the road. It's really tough to play in Denver. Dallas also just aren't a great road team, but I am picking the Cowboys to win this game. The Broncos are overdue for a loss. You could argue they are a better overall team than Dallas, but they just can't keep getting away with this. I'm taking the Cowboys. And then we end the afternoon games when the Colts play the Titans. We already saw this matchup before. It wasn't even close, and you should expect more of the same here. The Colts keep on rolling. I'm done acting like they're trash. I've done it way too many times, but they've continued to prove me wrong, like in that Chargers game. They are legit, and they've been taking care of business against the trash teams, and the Titans definitely fit that description. Outside of the Jets, they're the worst team in the league, hands down. They just can't be productive on a consistent basis. Cam Ward showed a little life early in the Pats game, but that's about all we saw. This is just a mean mismatch, and I'm expecting Jonathan Taylor and Daniel Jones to continue to do their thing in an easy W versus a bottom-tier team. And then on Sunday night, the Green Bay Packers are going to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers. And I'll be for real with you, this was a tough pick for me. And ultimately, I consider both teams to be pretty damn fraudulent. The Steelers after losing to the Bengals and looking pretty weird all season, and the Packers for sometimes looking like a Super Bowl contender, but then the next losing to Cleveland, or in this case, having a very close game against the Cardinals. It's just unacceptable for them to have been down for a lot of that game against Arizona. They're just not a good football team. I know they've looked okay the last few weeks between the Colts game and the Packers game, but still, this Cardinals team has 2 wins. There should be no reason why you're down late in the game against them. I just don't know with this Packers team. They're so weird. Them and the Steelers are both weird. Overrated, overhyped, and extremely inconsistent. This has the making of an absolute disaster class Sunday night football game. I don't know what it is, but I feel like both teams are due for a stinker. And usually in those types of scenarios, you favor the Steelers. That's just the classic way of Pittsburgh, that bullshit brand of football where they find dumb ways to win. That's what they've been known for several years, and that's what I think happens in this game. It's going to be a slugfest. You might have a couple of big plays between Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers, but I think both of them are going to stink. I think both defenses step up under the lights, and it ends up being a really competitive contest. But I don't know, man. The Packers, it feels like they should beat the Steelers, but I think that's exactly why they'll lose this game. They always lose the random games. That's just what the Pack are all about in the Jordan Love era, and it happens here against Pittsburgh. Not going to be a good game, at least in my opinion. And finally, ending this shortened week, you have the Chiefs versus the Commanders on one singular, thank the Lord for that, Monday Night Football game. And whether it's Jaden Daniels or Marcus Mariota who suits up as the QB for the Commanders, I favor the Chiefs either way. Kansas City straight up in recent weeks have looked way better than the Commanders. KC in general feel like they're back in their normal form that we're accustomed to with them. They're moving the ball with relative ease. They beat down the Lions. They destroyed the Raiders. Rashee Rice is back, and he didn't miss a beat in his first game back with Mahomes. They look good still. That offense looks potent once again, and I expect them to be in control against the Commanders no matter what happens, as the Commanders just aren't that good of a team. They do have playoff potential for sure, just knowing what happened last season, but you can tell there's regression. This roster isn't that great. It does have injuries. They're not as explosive. It's just been a rough year for the Commanders. A strange one. They're on a bit of a losing streak. They need to bounce back, but this is not the team to have it come against. Just have Marcus Mariota get thrown out to the Wolves, take an L here, move on to the next game, and hope for the best. This has been a rough year for the Commanders. I feel for those guys, but it's probably going to continue against KC here. And with that said, that's going to wrap up my preview and predictions for Week 8 of the NFL season. Let me know who you have winning down in the comments below and what your best bets are as well. And if you enjoyed the video, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe for more weekly NFL content.